All right, so let's call the meeting to order. Could we please have a roll call?
Okay, Chair Hester,
Present.
Councilman Commissioner Skaggs,
Present.
Commissioner Lubinecki,
You're muted, Karen.
Present.
okay, and Commissioner Drake.
Present.
Okay, that's those are our commission members tonight.
Okay, so we have a quorum.
Yes, we have 3 out of the 5 members who are here.
Okay, that's enough to move forward. We have some minutes that we should be approving next on the agenda, which we had at our October 19th meeting. Does anybody have any requests for any edits on the minutes? I believe that I have, while everybody else is looking, I believe I have 2 very tiny typos.
Okay,
On the first page, the 1, 2, 3, the 5th paragraph where it starts out saying Chair Hester asked.
mm-hmm.
On the second line, it says personal matters. That should be personnel matters.
Okay,
That's
okay.
according to the state laws. And then on the second page, after end of executive session, the second paragraph after where it says end of executive session, about 3/4 of the way down, the second to last line, it says section J2 at the very end of that line. You see where it says J2?
See on that second, yes.
All right, that should be lowercase j, not uppercase j.
Okay. Okay,
Does anybody else have any edits for these minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the meeting, the minutes for August 29th, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Next item is a discussion, follow-up of the commission's letter on September 13th to Councilman Mitchell regarding possible ethics violations. And could we please have a quick summary from our staff? I understand that we did get a letter from the Ethics Commission going to Mr. Mitchell about 35 days ago, give or take. And if we could please have a clarification on just what the process was.
That is correct. So staff, meaning myself, had sent a letter to Mr. Councilman Mitchell on April 23rd, asking him to respond to the Ethics Commission based on, well, the memo was originally sent out on August 3rd. And then we responded again on August 23rd. And then he did not respond. We sent this to him via email, via snail mail, as well as put it on in his council box. And then on September 25th, Ms. Christopoulos actually ran into Councilman Mitchell in the hallway and brought it to his attention. And then I believe he picked it up from his council box because the information was gone. However, Councilman Mitchell has yet to respond in writing to myself or to Ms. Christopoulos or call or follow up at all. So that's pretty much the summation of everything.
Okay. Councilman Mitchell, you're on the Zoom right now, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Did you receive this letter from us? And if so, when? And were you planning on responding in writing?
I don't remember when I received it, but I did receive it.
Okay.
And yes, I'm planning to respond. I just hadn't been able to in writing, so glad we had this meeting so I could explain virtually.
Okay. I'm sure we will welcome anything you'd like to talk about, but we do have a requirement in the ethics ordinance and in our rules of procedure where we are required to have a response in writing because this is a legal matter, and so we need to do it according to such procedures. So, as I say, we're welcome. We would welcome anything you have to say, but we do have to have it in writing.
Sure.
in order for us
I
to
can make
consider it.
sure to notate it in writing. That's no problem.
Okay. Basically, there is just to very briefly summarize this, there was a situation where there was a person or a family in the city of Laurel who was going through an eviction process. There were concerns, Councilman Mitchell and Councilman DeWalt at some point wound up at the citizens' place of residence when I guess it was the sheriff's office was there to serve the eviction. My understanding from the various documents that have been submitted to date, and please correct me, because I wasn't there. If Councilman DeWalt or Mitchell could correct me, I'd be very happy to be better informed. But there was I guess a discussion where both councilmen seemed to be supporting the individual or the family that was being evicted in favor of the Laurel owners, the landlords, who are also part of our community, and supporting one over the other and lending their name and their prestige and their position to the one side of a legal dispute. And clearly, nobody wants to see anybody evicted. That's horrible.
Yeah, I would disagree with that one, but I understand the sentiment.
All right.
No,
Well,
I said you said correct. You said correct you if I thought
Right.
it was incorrect or DeWalt. So I was just saying that yes, I felt that was incorrect, and I was just making that statement.
And Mr. Hester, the sheriff department was not present when I got there. They were not
Okay.
present there, just so you know that.
all right. Were they there at some point in the day?
Yeah, they got there a
Sure, yes.
little bit later, but they weren't there when we were there. It was just the lady who is she's a representative of the landlord, about 15 people that she had brought with her, and another lady standing next to her that kept waving a bunch of papers in my face all the time. That was
Yeah.
about it.
All right. Well, thank you for the clarification. I appreciate
No problem.
it. So basically, we have a concern. The Ethics Commission does have a concern, and there are some very specific parts to the ethics ordinance, and in particular, the two that we had been citing were having to do with what's called abuse of position of and misuse of prestige of office by having people who are council members taking what appeared to be taking sides in a legal dispute between two valued members of the community of Laurel. And it's instead of acting perhaps, maybe one or both of you wound up acting as a mediator. If so, that was one thing, but we have some information that perhaps it was more than just being a mediator in the case of Councilman Mitchell.
Okay, and so at what point do I just get into the story, or because I
Well, I would welcome if you'd like
I
to.
understand your assertion.
I'd welcome if you'd like to talk about your perspective at this point. That would be useful, I think.
Well, it's not my perspective. It's actually just hearing my side of the story. So that
Okay.
is the way that I understand it. There's always three sides to the story. But leading back to, I believe it was July 31st, I received a call from someone Carl and I know Catherine Gainey, and she basically said that she had an eviction coming up, and she believed that she wasn't given, I guess, proper notice or enough notice. And so I remember, I think the eviction happened on Tuesday. This had to have been like Monday like 6 p.m. So then I called a bunch of contacts. I had Sheriff Carr's contact. I called a bunch of contacts, and then he called me back, and I told him, hey, there was a resident, and she claimed that she was undergoing an eviction, or an eviction would take place at her property. And so, is there an eviction, like a current eviction writ out for her? And if so, what exactly was it for? And he said he'll call me back. I believe he called me back in like 30 minutes. He said, okay, yes, there is an eviction writ out for her, and it looks like it's not it looks like it's not like they were late, but it looks like a tenant holding over case. And so I said, okay, I'll explain it to Catherine and, see what she says. And, before I could even get off of the phone with the sheriff, Catherine was calling me. So I remember I just clicked right over, told her what happened. And then I asked the sheriff, I said, well, in this situation, there's a current writ out for her. It could be retaliatory because she complained about the roaches, but, retaliatory eviction would be very hard to prove. I said, so that's not even something that she would bring up. I said, but, what recourse does she have, or, can she be given any more time? And then he said, well, no, she can't be given any more time. He couldn't do anything. That's exactly what he said. He said, the only recommendation I would say is, if there was an agreement between the property manager to extend the date of eviction, or the date that they needed them out, like that, he couldn't cancel the writ, but that he can basically postpone it if both the property manager and the tenant agree. So I said, okay, cool. I said, let me figure out how to reach out to the property manager. And so I called, I believe his name, Plazinski. I called Deputy Chief Plazinski, and I asked him if he had the contact information for the property manager at 7:15. He said, I guess it's somewhere in his list, and he called me back. So then he called me back, gave me the number, but then he said, oh, well, you already know it's like 8 p.m., so it's not likely that they'll answer. I said, you're probably right. I said, she just called me, I think, at like 6:15, 6 o'clock. And so basically I had to call once or twice, they didn't answer. And so Sheriff Carr, he said, well, one of the things, you can try to talk to the property manager in the morning. And if she's willing to extend the eviction, she wouldn't have to, hire an eviction crew, and, the tenant can just move out in a week or two in their own fruition. And, I can postpone it, but I cannot cancel it. And he kept saying, his job is to execute evictions. And I was like, I completely understand that. Because, we have, I think he did a couple of like workshops for CASA. And so like that was him just explaining his position and his job, and, letting people know that he just serves the function of the court. And so basically the next morning, I called the property management number that I had gotten. And I guess in between that time, Carl had heard from Catherine Gainey, like in between, me finding out at like 6 p.m. Monday night to that 8 p.m. And he came at some point during the day, but it was probably a few people standing out front of her building. And so I went inside, and I told Catherine, of course, she showed me, some more of her roaches, and we saw some of them on the way in. And so I said, I was going to try to call the property management company.
This is the ethics
At
committee.
that
I don't
point,
know
I called.
how to do something.
He said, "Oh, at that point, I called the property management company, and then she said that I believe it was Stephanie. She said Stephanie was out in the field, and she would give me a call. So then I told her that I was basically in front of 715, and so she said, "Oh, well, if you're in front of 715, I'll just call Stephanie because I believe she's already over there." And so she had gotten on the phone, said goodbye. So then, probably like a minute later, Stephanie emerges from
No,
I believe, a
she's not
pickup
here.
truck on Main Street. And so she comes out and says, "Oh, nice to meet you." Or, I explained, "Oh, Councilman Mitchell." But then I also, one of the first things I said, I understand that, there's an eviction supposed to take place, and, I'm familiar with Ms. Gaines' residence, and, I definitely come there with different, code enforcement concerns. I said, but that being aside, I said, my question is because I had spoken with the sheriff, and, one of the recourses he explained to me was if both parties agree to postpone it, whether it be a week, whether it be 2 weeks, whether it be a month, that was something that he could do. He could postpone it, but he could not cancel the eviction. And, I expressed, well, Catherine, she's disabled, and, from her understanding, she had received not a lot of notice. I said, I'm not really sure what notice was given. And then she said, "Oh, well, it cost me money to hire an eviction crew or hire people, of course, some of which, I realized were the maintenance people who were, already working on the building." So, I said, well, if, it was about bodies, I said, I can come back and help move out if, there was some agreement. And, I said, I'm sure we have people who would be willing to help her move if, there were terms that you guys agreed on, whether it be a week, whether it be 2 weeks, just more time for her to actually relocate. And then she said, "No, we can't do it. We can't do it." And then, so I think at this point, DeWalt had come up, because DeWalt, I believe he walked up. And so, DeWalt was already familiar with Catherine as far as, the pest situation, as far as, the issues with the landlord and the property management. And so, and so basically, I said, well, I will be, concerned, because one of the questions I had was, have the pests ever been abated here? Because, I remember a year ago, that I brought up to code enforcement that there were different pest concerns. I had actually visited the building, showed pictures, and, was made aware that they were aware of the property and at least aware of, a pest issue. And so she's, "Oh, well, basically she caused, this one tenant caused the pest issue in the entire building." So I said, "Well, that's, I find that difficult to believe, but, sure, you're saying that one resident caused pests in the entire building." I said, "But, my question is, a year ago, I came and I saw roaches, not only in her apartment, but outside, in the hallway. And I said, I could see the boric acid being right on the floorboards on outside, not only her apartment, but other apartments." And then I said, so like for me, and, from a city perspective, at some point, it has to become a health concern. And so I said, as the landlord, I said, I would be concerned if the health department came and visited your property. And she said, "Oh, is that a threat?" And I said, "No, it's not a threat. I'm just saying from what I saw, I would be concerned." And then she said, "Oh, I don't appreciate threats." And I said, "Well, I am not threatening you." And then we continued the conversation. And she I forgot what she said to me. She basically, said that Catherine was the problem. Catherine was just a dirty person. So then I said, well, I said, at the end of the day, I don't understand the relationship that you guys have. I said, but from most of the times that I've come, there wasn't a hoarding situation as, you described, and, it didn't look any different or any worse than the apartment complex or the apartment building, the apartment unit downstairs, as far as like, how they're keeping their unit. And so I said, and Catherine, she's mentioned that, she keeps wanting to get this addressed through the city, but she would be utterly mistaken if she feels that the city would do something, because the city's continue to inspect it and they continue to do some type of action which hasn't yielded results. And so she said, well, at this time, I should get the media involved. So then when I was outside talking to, I think her name was Stephanie, I said, Stephanie, and, Catherine mentioned that, she might reach out to the media if she had no other recourse, especially about the pest situation, because I still see the pest situation. I said, so I would hate if the media actually reached out to me. I said, because at the end of the day, I would tell them what I saw in that building every time I was there. And every time I was there, I saw a major health issue, not only in Catherine's apartment, but other apartments in that unit. And so I think Carl was listening in, but then Carl says, well, you have this sign here, and, this sign says for sale, and it's a big for sale sign. So are you basically saying that you're going to tell everybody when they come and ask for sale that, this place has roaches? And, I don't remember their back and forth. But then, she stormed off. And shortly after, we went inside back into Catherine's apartment. And, it was Catherine, her roommate, her autistic roommate, and the sheriff, the deputy sheriff knocked on the door, and he basically said, one of the things he said, oh, who is, came and asked, who is Catherine? And so, this is Catherine. And I think Carl knew the gentleman from prior. So then he had asked him, oh, he's still on the job. And then basically he had expressed that the eviction writ couldn't even be executed because that it had expired. Because from the time that the eviction or the judge had granted the eviction for the tenant holding over case, I think it was 60 or whatever time period, I think it's 60 days, either 60 or 90, that had actually expired by 3 weeks to like a month. And so we came in and said, well, no eviction could take place here today anyway. We said, and so we're taking this back. This would have to go back to court because, obviously at this point it would be an illegal eviction and expired eviction. And, at that point they left the premises. I think I connected Catherine with Community Legal Services as a legal aid, and then probably like a day or two later, I got that disparaging letter from Mayor Mo based on a response that he had gotten from Stephanie. I mean, to be truthful, it was hard to dissect the actual message because it was riddled with typos. And so, my perspective of it was like, just as a mayor and a chief executive, it would have been, it would have been great to receive a call or email, because, the way that I saw it was Carl and I, we basically just showed up, and one of the things I asked was, what can be done here? What is the recourse? Obviously nothing could be done, but then we came to find out that the eviction had expired and was illegal anyway at that point. And so they didn't execute the eviction. And so the truth of the matter, the management company was upset because they would have to go back to court to actually execute the eviction. And, I think that the bigger part of it is the city is well aware of the issues that existed at this building as far as past, and dating back to even 2021. So the assertion that, no one's complained or no one was aware of the issue, that's just not the case. But, that's really my perspective for the most part. And, I really just found it distasteful to receive that memo without any call or anything, because from the way that I saw it is like, and as I always say, there's always three sides to the story. So he just took the, badly written story from, of course, the property manager, and, kind of waved his finger at the sheriff and myself for, as I said, stopping an illegal eviction or some way stepping in the way of an illegal eviction. But, that was pretty much the whole case in a nutshell.
All right, thank you very much for taking the time to go over that with us. Do we have
Sure.
any thoughts or comments from any of the other ethics commissioners? Hearing none at this.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, back to, this kind of goes back to when this first came up with us, which is why we wanted to hear from Mr. Mitchell, because in my mind, at least, the legalities of the whole issue of the eviction and everything is really way out of the purveyance of the commission. That's not really the issue that we need to deal with. The question was whether Mr. Mitchell engaged in any improper ethical behavior or undue influence. And the concern I have with this, and I will express this again, is that this is very much a he said, she said situation where the same words would be interpreted very differently by two different people.
Okay, anybody else want to say anything?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
Attorney Whitley, the only thing I'd ask is when can we expect a written response from the council member?
I couldn't, it's Thursday. I mean, I could have it to you by Monday morning.
all right. Well, we
Free-
look forward
free
to
of
seeing that
typos.
on Monday. I will look
I
forward to seeing
appreciate
that
it.
on
Thank you,
Monday, and then
Chairman.
we'll, I think we'll need to have another meeting after we receive that and consider it to decide what we want to do, how we want to proceed. I understand there's always one side, the other side, and the whatever's in the middle. On the other hand, and then also, it's not for the Ethics Commission to be involved in a legal dispute concerning eviction. Absolutely, Councilman or Commissioner Lubinecki is correct with that, but that's really not what we're looking at here. What we're looking at here is whether or not it was appropriate under the ethics ordinance for a council member, a person who's very, very high up in the city of Laurel, and who basically represents the city of Laurel every time any council member or the mayor ever goes out in public to say anything to anybody. Is it appropriate for a person of such stature and status to become involved in a legal dispute and take the part of one party who is a member of the city of Laurel over that of another, and essentially put the prestige of the entire city of Laurel on one side of the legal issue, as opposed to taking a neutral position and saying this is difficult and what can we do to help mediate and find a way forward that's good for everybody and not just one side. Clearly, evictions are not something that just happen overnight. They are the result of a very long time period where notices are given back and forth. I know we had some discussion with our legal counsel on this. And he's confirmed that such things are not just a spur of the moment kind of a decision. There's something that there are many protections for tenants, far more so even for tenants than landlords, although landlords have their protections as well too. And we just are hoping that the city does not take sides in such legal disputes unless there's obviously someone's behaving illegally. And I don't think anybody is saying anybody is behaving illegally in this case. Certainly I have sympathies on both sides because we value everybody in our city. I'm not sure what else we can do at this time, unless anyone would like to advise me as to how we want to
Mr. Hester,
proceed.
can I make one comment, please?
I have
Sure.
one question, but I'll wait till you go, Carl.
Councilmember DeWalt?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can go.
I just wanted to, obviously there was a little bit of tension there because somebody was gonna possibly be evicted. And this lady, Stephanie, when she found out that the sheriff's departments got there and that eviction was null and void, and it had to be done within 60 days of it being signed by that judge, she became very, very angry. And all she kept yelling was, I'm losing $1,200. I'm losing 12. And she said it numerous times. And I honestly believe if she would have just left after she found out it was illegal, if she would have left, she would have sat down and she would have just calmed down a little bit. And this is all by law. This is all by law she has to follow. Yet she was disturbed and all she worried about was that $1,200 that she was going to lose, although it was illegal. If she would have just calmed down, I honestly believe that she would have wrote, because I read the letter from her, it would have been a little bit, her language would have been a little bit different, and she wouldn't have blamed me and Councilman Mitchell for coming to the aid of a constituent when all she cared about was that money that she was losing. And it wasn't about the law, understood, because in that aspect, it wasn't a good writ. And we should have just parted ways and then go back to court, which have gone back to court, and another judge has ruled differently on this, according to Catherine. But I think it would have turned out a lot better. But she couldn't accept the fact of losing that money. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I was going to say
Councilmember Mitchell?
in 2 points. Yeah, I was going to say in 2 points. It was really that I think from my last conversation, which was that day with the sheriff, was that the writ, one of the things they didn't realize is the writ shouldn't have been executed. Like, they shouldn't have sent sheriffs out that day because it should have been canceled due to it expiring. So that was kind of one. But the second one was when I initially got Mayor Mo's letter, I'll be honest with you, after reading, I said that the letter riddled with typos from Stephanie, I thought it was more of a political witch hunt. And then, Carl can tell you very plainly that I wasn't even aware that there was an ethics meeting that was happening. I think Carl and I were on a phone call at around like 5 p.m. Talking about a community member, and I believe they had gotten struck by a car. And so he was on the website, and one of the things he mentioned was, man, I've seen three notices about the ethics commission. Like, let me check it out. Like, and so I was like, okay, well, I said, well, Carl, look at the agenda. Tell me what the agenda says. I believe I was driving at the time. And so he said, oh, well, there's not much on the agenda, but it says like guidance from a letter from Mayor Mo. But I guess like the letter wasn't, it wasn't a PDF or anything to click on. And so, luckily Carl was able to attend the meeting and listen in. And so that's when, after the fact, Carl had told me, what the meeting was about. because I wasn't even aware. Otherwise, I would have tried to attend virtually when the first meeting was held, because I know that the last time Mayor Moses an ethics inquiry, we received a date on when the meeting would happen to discuss said meeting. And so I was kind of befuddled that that notification never happened. So I guess that was my kind of 2 points there.
All right, well, the way the Ethics Commission works is we do not do things openly and publicly when there's just simply an initial thought or allegation, because what we want to do is protect anybody. It is easy to say, Chairman Hester, I'm just using myself, but whoever, Chairman Hester did something bad, and we want the Ethics Commission to look into it and hold a hearing on it. Well, I mean, the Ethics Commission does not just accept something like that just at face value, because we want to protect the reputation of whomever is being having a finger pointed at them. And so we don't put out broad notices on that sort of thing. We simply talk amongst ourselves to see whether or not there's any point to going forward, or if the whole thing is just inconsequential, or someone's just up to mischievous actions, and we do not want to adversely affect anybody, especially their reputations in the city. So this meeting today has to do with, we did send a letter under my signature to Councilman Mitchell on September 13th, asking him to respond in writing. That was 35 days ago, and we did not receive a written response back. And so we were basically going to be talking tonight to see, what do we need to do if our legally required response, to our letter is not forthcoming. What were we to think that our letter was not being responded to or taken seriously or whatever? I mean, we didn't even know. And all we knew was radio silence. And so we needed to meet to decide, how do we want to proceed given the radio silence? Now, given that Councilman Mitchell was on the call tonight, I think, and has promised a written response by Monday, I think I'm just one member of the Ethics Commission, even though I may be the chair. I'm simply one member with one vote. My initial thought is to be generous and give Councilman Mitchell the time to get in his written response on Monday, and then we can, as the Ethics Commission, we can consider his response and decide how we want to proceed. If at some point we want to take some active role in terms of holding a hearing or offering a hearing for this to be more formally reviewed, we'll make that decision at that time, and at that point, everybody will be notified. Anybody who is going to be named as a respondent will then have their rights given to them, and they will have the right to legal representation, and I as chair have the power of subpoena. So if anybody would like anything subpoenaed, any records or any people, they could lay all that out at that time. But we are not at that formal stage at this point. And again, we're more interested in at this point, before we make a decision, to protect people's reputations at this time, before we go into the full active hearing mode. Do any other commissioners have any thoughts or would like to discuss this at this point? Does anybody disagree? Anybody agree?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see Mr. Mitchell's response, but if his response is very much close to what we heard today, I mean, assuming that what he puts in writing is very close to it, I think that we are spending a lot of energy on something that is going to come down to a he said, she said situation. And for us to
That's the
make,
whole purpose of a hearing, and you have people, you have witnesses from all sides, and you have everybody on both sides who has something to say, have the opportunity to say it, and then it's up to the Ethics Commission to weigh the testimony and the cross-examination.
and do we really
Make a
think that at
decision.
this point that this is worth spending this much time, effort, and energy on?
Well, I'd be
If
willing to
I
listen to
may be
anybody.
heard, I believe that we are tasked with following our procedures and to decide today whether this is something we want to, as you say, spend time on. The procedure is the procedure. And if we are supposed to get a written response and then move forward from that, then I believe that's what we need to do. We need to also be in compliance with what we are tasked to do and how we are tasked to do it.
Anybody else want to say anything? I guess that's all the other two commissioners. For myself, as a commissioner, not as the chair, but simply as a commissioner, I agree that we have our procedures. It would be improper for us to set our procedures aside. We need to move with our procedures and follow our rules that we have laid out.
And Chairman Hess, I had one question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Councilman Mitchell,
Hello, it sounded kind of static. Oh, yes. Okay, you can hear me fine?
I can hear you.
We can hear you fine.
Oh, okay. Yes, no, I appreciate bearing with me. I had to pick up the kids from daycare today. My question was, I know that I saw because I believe it was a virtual meeting that was posted on YouTube. When just talking about getting, I think it was either a response or I want to say it was getting a response. There was a statement made about getting the response before the election. And so like my question was, what does this inquiry have to like do with an election or upcoming elections?
To be very
Based on-
specific.
Based on what?
Oh, go ahead. Was somebody going to respond? To be very specific, I was not the one who said anything like that. What the requirement is we have timelines with certain X number of days in between actions, and they happen to fall before the election.
Okay, no, that's why I said I needed clarity. I wasn't sure because
it's not election driven. The Ethics Commission does not. The Ethics Commission does not set its calendar according to political events. We have our own procedures. We have X numbers of days to give people to respond. They have X numbers of days to come back. If we then make a decision to go ahead with a formal hearing, then there are X numbers of days notice. There are X numbers of days, and so on. After the hearing, after a decision's been made, after a plea has been made, one way or another, there are 3 possible pleas: not guilty, guilty, or nolo contendere, and there are all these different processes and procedures, and they're driven by a number of days that are laid out in the ethics ordinance and in the Ethics Commission's rules of procedures. That's all that's being there. That's driving us.
No, I understand you. I wasn't, like I said, I just needed further clarity because I didn't catch the entire thing. So.
Right. Well, perhaps there's something was taken out of context, but I mean, I think I explained it as best as I can. We are not political people on the Ethics Commission. We're trying to do our job for the city, for the citizens, the best that we can according to our laws and procedures.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to say at this time? I know we're about, our attorney is about ready to turn into a pumpkin. I know he has another commitment at 7 o'clock, and so we're closing in on that. All right, so is there a motion to wait until we receive the written response on Monday from Councilman Mitchell? Give ourselves a couple of days to review it and then hold another Zoom meeting at that time to decide how we want to proceed. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Commissioner Lubinecki?
Sure. Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Is there any other business anyone would like to bring up for the Ethics Commission at this time? Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to us or address us at this time? Is there a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
we are adjourned until we have time to review the written response, and then we'll set a time for our meeting at that time.